Imagine a nuclear bomb detonates in a city. Not in a movie, not in some grainy old documentary. Right now, what happens next? And I don't mean just the explosion itself, that giant fireball we've all seen in slow motion. Usually in documentaries or in movies where someone makes a series of very bad decisions. The stranger question is what comes after. Hours later, days later, months later, the air changes, the sky changes, the ground changes, and the place where a city used to exist starts going through something that feels almost like another planet. Today, we're going to follow that timeline step by step, from the very first second to the end of the first year. When we think about a nuclear explosion, we usually picture just one thing, a blinding flash, followed by a giant mushroom cloud. End of the story. Or at least, that's what movies tend to make it look like. In reality, the explosion is only the beginning of the problem. A nuclear bomb releases energy equivalent to thousands, or even millions, of tons of TNT in just a few milliseconds. To give you a sense of how extreme that is, the bomb dropped on Hiroshima released energy comparable to about 15,000 tons of explosives. And all of that happens almost instantly. First comes the fireball, then a shockwave that rips across the entire city, then extreme heat, then radiation, and after that, a chain of effects begins that can last for months, or even years. The destroyed city keeps changing long after the silence returns. The ground remains contaminated. The atmosphere carries radioactive particles. Collapsed structures release toxic materials. And the entire environment enters a state scientists call nuclear fallout. But to really understand the impact of something like this, we need to do one thing. Go back to the beginning and follow exactly what happens as time passes. Seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, until we reach the first year after the explosion. And some parts of that timeline are far stranger than most people imagine. Let's imagine a normal city. Buildings, streets, cars, people walking around, probably late for something. Now imagine that suddenly a ball of light appears in the sky. This isn't a normal explosion. It's more like a miniature sun appearing out of nowhere. In the first milliseconds, the temperature at the center of the explosion can exceed millions of degrees. That's hotter than the surface of the sun itself. The fireball expands incredibly fast. Anything too close simply evaporates. Metal melts, concrete cracks apart, glass turns into dust. But the most visible effect comes right after that. The shockwave. Think of it like tossing a pebble into a pond. The ripples spread outward in circles. Now imagine the same thing, except it's compressed air moving faster than a hurricane. This wave tears across the city, collapsing buildings, flipping cars, and shattering almost everything in its path. Then something else arrives, something invisible, radiation. It passes through walls, through bodies, and keeps traveling. Meanwhile, the explosion begins pulling dust, ash, and fragments of the entire city upward. All that material rises kilometers into the atmosphere, and it forms the enormous cloud we always see in historical images. The famous mushroom cloud. But here's the curious part. The explosion itself lasts only a few seconds. Yet its effects can keep spreading for months, and that's where the real timeline begins. Now let's look at this as a timeline, because a nuclear explosion lasts only a few seconds. But what happens afterward keeps unfolding for hours, days, and even years. If we could fast forward time like a video, it would look something like this: 0 seconds. The bomb detonates. A massive fireball appears instantly, releasing energy equivalent to thousands of tons of explosives. The temperature at the center of the blast can exceed millions of degrees. Anything very close simply evaporates, metal melts, concrete shatters. For a few seconds, that spot in the city literally becomes hotter than the surface of the sun. 10 seconds. The shockwave spreads outward rapidly. It's a wall of compressed air moving in every direction. Windows shatter. Cars are thrown through the air, and structures begin to collapse. At the same time, the fireball starts rising, pulling dust, soil, and debris from the city upward. 1 minute, the famous mushroom cloud forms. This swirling column of hot air carries tons of material from the ground up into the atmosphere. Part of that material becomes contaminated by the radiation released in the explosion. 1 hour. Fires begin breaking out across the city at the same time. The initial heat can ignite wood, fuel, plastic, and almost any flammable material. When many fires merge together, something called a firestorm can form. Hot air rises quickly and pulls oxygen from every direction, creating powerful winds that feed the flames even more. It's as if the entire city has been placed inside a gigantic oven. Except no one is there to press the off button. One day, much of the nuclear fallout has already begun falling in nearby areas. Fallout is the radioactive material that was thrown into the atmosphere by the explosion and is now slowly returning to the ground. These are microscopic particles of contaminated dust. They can fall as an invisible powder or mixed with rain. Depending on the wind, this material can reach regions tens or even hundreds of kilometers away. 1 week. Radiation levels begin to drop relatively quickly. Many of the radioactive elements released in the explosion have short half-lives, so they lose a large portion of their energy during the first few days. 1 month. Some areas remain contaminated, especially near the epicenter. 1 year. The landscape has changed completely, but the effects of that event can continue for a long time. And this is exactly where something unexpected begins to happen. After the initial chaos passes, something curious begins to happen. If you looked at that place a few months after the explosion, you'd probably assume nothing there could ever function again. Destroyed buildings, empty streets, burned structures. The entire landscape looks more like the set of a post-apocalyptic movie than a real city. But the planet has an interesting habit. It doesn't like leaving empty spaces for very long. So, slowly, something begins to change. First, small plants start appearing. Nothing dramatic, just a few shoots emerging between the rubble. Grasses growing through cracks in the concrete. Seeds carried by the wind finding space to germinate where streets, sidewalks, and parking lots once existed. It's almost as if nature is saying, "All right, I guess this place is available now." Then the first animals start showing up. Insects arrive first, because somehow insects always seem to arrive first almost anywhere. On Earth, then come small rodents. Some birds begin exploring the area, and over time, larger animals appear as well. This isn't just a curious theory, it has actually happened. After the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, many people believed those regions would remain lifeless for decades. But just a few months later, plants began growing again. And there's an even more famous example, Chernobyl. After the nuclear accident in 1986, a huge area was evacuated and almost completely abandoned by humans. And do you know what happened? Without cities operating, without cars, without constant construction, and without people occupying the space, nature started reclaiming the territory. Today, wolves, moose, wild boars, and many other species live in areas that used to be towns and cities. Of course, that doesn't mean everything returns to normal immediately. Some areas remain contaminated. Certain radioactive elements can stay in the soil for decades. But even so, there's something remarkable about all of this. Life always tries to come back, even in extreme environments. Even in places that seem completely destroyed. And that may be one of the most surprising facts about nuclear events. Even after something incredibly destructive, the planet doesn't just sit still and wait. Plants grow again. Animals begin exploring the territory once more. Entire ecosystems slowly reorganize themselves, not because the disaster suddenly stopped existing, but because life has an astonishing ability to adapt. A nuclear explosion lasts only a few seconds, but its effects can last for generations. What begins as a massive fireball quickly turns into something far more complex, a chain of physical, environmental, and human consequences. Shockwaves, radiation, changes in ecosystems, slow reconstruction. The timeline of an event like this reveals something interesting about the planet itself. Even after extreme events, Earth keeps changing, sometimes slowly, sometimes in unexpected ways, and understanding these processes isn't just scientific curiosity. It's also a reminder of the scale of the power humanity has created, and the responsibility that comes with it. Now, if a nuclear explosion already sounds like something absurd, wait until you see a place in the universe where the rules get even stranger. I'm talking about black holes, those cosmic objects that can swallow entire stars, bend space, and basically turn anything that gets too close into cosmic spaghetti. Yes, that includes you. In the previous video on the channel, we ran exactly that slightly questionable experiment. What would happen if you fell into a black hole? So, if you want to see how that story unfolds, just click the video that's appearing on your screen right now.